them with a single crime. We're the United States of America. It's 2025. You need evidence. You need a crime. You have to say what it is. And on Tuesday, masked ICE officers grabbed Rumesa Ozturk, a PhD student at Tufts University, off the street as she was on her way to break fast for Ramadan. She has not been charged with a single crime. As far as I understand it, the Trump administration arrested these students because they engaged in the freedom of expression that is explicitly protected under the Constitution of the United States. What these individuals said or believed is besides the point. What matters is that we have a president arresting people because he disagrees with their constitutionally protected right to freedom of expression. And that imperils the basic democratic principles upon which all of our freedoms relies. When the government of the United States is sending mass police to grab students off the streets and from their homes, holding federal dollars or threat of investigation as blackmail to force institutions into silence and routinely violating the Constitution, the laws passed by the United States in order to do what he wishes while using the Jewish people and others as a shield for its transgressions, we have crossed a dangerous, dangerous threshold from which we cannot return unless we call it out for what it is, authoritarianism. We have a very serious anti-Semitism problem in the United States of America. It is a problem that deserves a real and a forceful response. But the answer to anti-Semitism will never be authoritarianism. We cannot guarantee freedom if we let Trump march in and steal freedom while we remain silent. So, Rabbi Saperstein, in your testimony, you state, quote, anti-Semitism, the hatred of Jews as Jews thrives in an authoritarian environment where civil liberties are curtailed, not in spaces of robust, protected, democratic discourse. So please expand on how Trump administration's authoritarian actions are a threat to the safety of the Jewish community and the role that Congress should play in response to it.
You know, I said before that the Jewish community in America has thrived, enjoying more rights, more freedoms, more opportunities than anywhere else. There are a number of reasons for that. One is the rule of law, for which is at the core of our democratic system, our constitutional system. A second was the separation of government and religion. Here, that government would not interfere with the religion, be a wall keeping government out of religion. This was the first country in the history of the world in which we said, your rights as a citizen will not depend upon your religious identity, your religious beliefs, or your religious peaceful practices, which is a standard in my work as U.S. Ambassador for Religious Freedom. I try to hold every other country accountable to its embodying in the international human rights covenants. Here, we have always thrived better in open, pluralistic countries than we have in dogmatic and authoritarian countries. We are always the other in those authoritarian countries. And the reason we have thrived here has been the opportunities that higher education has given us, that the public schools brought us up through for generations in this country here, and the attacks on each one of those that we're seeing on higher education, on cutting back, even restricting funds, the public schools in terms of the attacks on the rule of law, on judges, the judicial system, ignoring judicial decisions that are being made. All of this undercuts the safety of not just Jews, but everyone who is a victim of discrimination in this country.
Anti-Semitism is the problem. Authoritarianism is not the answer.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for calling this important hearing. Thanks to our witnesses for being here. Mr. Stern, if I could just start with you. I see that 5 or 6 days ago you gave an interview in which you said that the removal of Mahmoud Khalil, the pro-Hamas foreign rioter, is a form of McCarthyism and makes Jewish students less safe. Now, this is an individual who has been accused of endorsing and espousing terrorist activity, who's been accused of lying on his application to a green card in the United States, who's currently being sued for terrorizing and assaulting Jewish students. Do you stand by your view that trying to remove him is a form of McCarthyism?
Absolutely, Senator.
Why in the world would that be the case?
Let me answer. He hasn't been charged with the crime. The clear predicate for this, White House said, was handing out pro-Hamas propaganda. When you start talking about people's views and what they're talking about in the public square as a basis for discrimination, and then the effect on Jewish students, it's not just the fact that Jews may be seen as, well, we're pushing this and that's going to happen. The way that this is going to harm Jewish students is it harms the academy.
Wait a minute. My time is limited. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just wait a minute. I've got to correct numerous inaccuracies there. Number one, as you very well know, United States law says that a non-citizen is inadmissible for entry into this country if they, and I quote, endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuade others to do the same. That same law provides you can be removed for the same reasons. That is what Mr. Khalil has been accused of. He has further been accused of by the United States government lying on his visa application. That on its own would be sufficient to remove him from this country. He is being sued, as you and I sit here in New York court, by the victims of October 7th for terrorizing and assaulting Jewish students, unlawfully taking over and damaging public university property, and physically assaulting Columbia University employees. And you're telling me that it's McCarthyism to remove this individual?
Senator, the deportation was started before that lawsuit, before that second question about what he was saying on his forms.
No, this is what the government has alleged in open court, Mr. Stern. This is the basis for their removal proceedings. And our law makes clear if you endorse or espouse terrorist activity, you can be removed from this country. He has done so. He's been accused of doing so from the beginning. He's been accused of lying to get into the country. I'm amazed that you're saying that this is McCarthyism.
Senator, you weren't here when I quoted part of what Justice Brandeis was talking about the back at a case where there's somebody that was convicted for supporting the Communist Party because they were talking about violence as a political solution. And Brandeis cautioned us that this type of robust speech, as long...
This isn't speech. Lying on a visa application is not speech. Seeking to assault Columbia University employees and Jewish students is not speech. You are defending an individual who has espoused the destruction of this country, the destruction of the state of Israel, the destruction of Jews, and has taken actions in furtherance of the same. You've also said that investigating the 60 colleges and universities that are currently under investigation by the Trump administration for anti-Semitism is a form of weaponizing anti-Semitism for political benefit. You're opposed to investigating these institutions for anti-Semitism?
Senator, I've been very clear that OCR has a very important role, that there are complaints that should go through the process. When you start using the Department of Justice and threatening universities' funding.
You are opposed, I just want to get this on the record, you are opposed to investigating Columbia University and others for anti-Semitism?
No.
That's what you said 6 days ago.
I am not opposed to doing it the right way.
What does that mean, doing it the right way?
Not to claw back funds, not to say we're holding you ransom. We're getting your faculty, Jewish...
You were asked about an investigation for failing to protect Jewish students, and you said that's just weaponizing anti-Semitism. It makes students less safe.
It is when the Department of Justice has a list of places they want to go to. The Senator Markey's question...
Oh, I heard Senator Markey's questions. I heard his whole speech. I thought it was insane. I just want to say for the record, I thought it was totally insane. And I think your positions are similarly insane. I think the idea that we would bend over backwards to hug and kiss and make nice to a pro-Hamas rioter, because that's what Khalil is, and that we would say, heavens, we can't remove him, and that makes Jewish students less safe on our campuses? That's nuts.
Senator,
that's nuts.
To Rabbi Saberstein's point, if you look at American history, the times when Jews were most vulnerable was during the Palmer raids in World War I, when there was political...
Jews are vulnerable now on our campuses because of people like Khalil, and I want to say for the record, I'm glad he's gone, and I hope he never comes back.
Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your time here and all your work. I think we've covered sufficiently to say that all of you agree that every student should feel safe on their campus. Certainly the troubling rise of anti-Semitic incidents on campuses over these past 2 years is troubling and should not be accepted. Students barricading in their rooms to protect themselves is unacceptable by any standard. But, you know, we've cut the Office of Civil Rights dramatically, and we seem to be pitting two of our fundamental goals against each other. You know, one is the necessity to stop anti-Semitism, but also making sure that we uphold the First Amendment rights. And I think American universities are trying to do that. I went to a little college in Connecticut, Wesleyan, where there's been a lot of effort about going out and trying to have discussion with both sides. And at the same time, always keeping students safe. That is their constant priority. So I thought, Rabbi Saperstein, do you agree that university leadership should work harder at making sure we have not just keeping them safe, but making sure that that dialogue can help create that safety?
I do. There are a number of things that are going on at universities that would be very helpful now. Exactly the university encouraging and structuring those kinds of dialogues, having courses that teach about both Zionism and Palestinian nationalism so that people can hear it from an academic point of view here, having opportunities that there can be an open space and safe space where these dialogues can be held. And the one thing I would say to your statement and to some of the others, it is always difficult to come up with a perfect answer of when something steps over speech into harassment or into intimidation, which are clearly not allowed. What's really important is for the universities to make clear what their standards are and what kind of protests will step over the line, to be public about it, transparent about it, and consistently enforce it. Nothing is more important in terms of actually being able to tone down things, for everyone to know what the rules are, what the limits are, and to see it consistently enforced no matter who the perpetrators may be.
Great. Any other comments on that? Yeah. Rabbi?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm obviously a supporter of the First Amendment. I'm a very deep beneficiary of the First Amendment. I believe that discussion between peoples is always important. One thing I'm proud of is the numerous relationships I have with Muslims and Arab leaders who come to this country.
But you got to go a little faster. I'm going to.
To understand them. It will be 3 sentences. On the campus of the George Washington University, I was just told firsthand by a student that they were taught in the first session of a class they needed to take that just to balance things out, there will be no Israeli written materials allowed in this course. I believe that.
I hear that argument, but that's not answering my question.
So,
Dr. Small.
Yeah, I just want to start by saying a family friend's daughter goes to Wesleyan, and she withdrew because she couldn't stand the pressure of being a young Jewish woman in this space. That's the
good.
first
Okay,
point.
Mr. Stern, no. I got to get another question. Sorry, I apologize. I wish I had 6 minutes.
Michael Roth, the president there, is one of my heroes. What he said when there was an encampment, he said, you want to camp? Camp. You harass somebody, you intimidate, that's a different story. We're going to use this as a learning experience. One other thing.
No.
Okay.
I want to get this last question. Sorry, Ms. Campbell, you get your 1 sentence.
I think we have to stop hiding behind free speech. What we are seeing on campuses is not a matter of speech by and large.
I hear you. I've heard that's come through. And I don't disagree but that balance between free speech and what we're talking about. I want just a quick yes or no right down the line, because this is a crux. Do you think it's appropriate that the federal government threatens to withhold research money that has nothing to do with any of this issue from major universities across the country based on how they're addressing this specific issue?
The federal government has the authority to condition how it spends its money.
So you think that's okay?
When institutions are violating the law, yes, it is okay.
Okay.
I believe they can reapportion the funding to institutions that will abide by the law and will protect Jewish students and other students and not have intimidation on their
So
campus.
research dollars are very hard to reapportion, but okay, I hear you.
There should be a way to do that.
It's against the federal law to fund private or public entities that discriminate against American citizens.
Their money is there to do what you're talking about, the rabbi here. To take it from here is punitive. It's really just aimed at undermining universities to do things that we can find a better way to get them achieved.
Senator, I see it as an existential threat to universities. They're going to kill cancer research and diabetes research. Some of the researchers are Jewish, and they're doing it without due process. That is not the way to deal with this problem. That's only going to make it worse.
Thank you all. I appreciate it. Yield back.
Thank you, Chairman Prerogative. I will point out, Rabbi Severstein pointed out that there's a fine line between free speech and violence. That shouldn't be a cover. Chasing kids into a room and pounding on the door when they are there is wrong.
Absolutely.
Let me just say that. And blocking their way to get across the commons to go to their class is wrong. And that shouldn't have to be established in a behavior handbook. That should just be known when the kid shows up. And if you're guilty of perpetrating that, you should suffer consequences. And I think that is not free speech. No, we're closing. I ask for unanimous consent to enter 3 letters into the record. The first record from the American Jewish Medical Association describing and highlighting the danger of anti-Semitism in medical education to the detriment of Jewish students and patients alike. The second letter from the Union of Orthodox Jewish Congregations of America providing recommendations to address anti-Semitism on college campuses and supporting the passage of the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, the Protecting Students on Campus Act, and the Deterrent Act. The third letter from the Zionist Organization of America highlighting the long history of anti-Semitism on college campuses, including the surge since the attacks on October the 7th, 2023. And I ask unanimous consent, and I so acknowledge. The hearing record will remain open for 10 business days. Senators may submit questions for the records within that time if they would like.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Sanders?
I have a couple of unanimous consents.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One to enter the record, a letter from the Jewish Electorate Institute regarding today's hearing, and another one dealing with the impact of Trump's cutting of the Office of Civil Rights.
Without objection. Thank you for being here today. The committee stands adjourned.
Okay, all right. Rabbi.
Well, you have to have everybody. Yes. All right. David.
Rabbi.
Huh?
Yes.
Well, don't worry, you'll get a screenshot. Thank you.
Yes.